to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Maria and today's video is just going to be a reading vlog. So just going through all of the books that I'm going to read this week. I've got a couple of options for my TBR, so we'll go through those. I'll let you know what I'm going to be reading and yeah, just basically taking you along for the journey with my reads this week. So the first book I'm picking up, and one that I have already started, is The Sword of Kagan by M.L. Wong, and this is basically because I read Blood Over Brighthaven by this author at the end of last year. Absolutely loved it. It was a book that kind of came out of nowhere for me. Wasn't too sure what to expect from this author, and she may be slowly becoming an auto-buy author for me because so far in this one I've really enjoyed it. But before we get into that, I'll just give you a quick synopsis about what this one's about. And this one we're following 14-year-old Mamoru, who was basically born into this family on the Kazunagi Peninsula, and essentially within this land we have all of the best fighters and warriors within the world, and Mamoru's family, the Matsuda family, are basically revered within this town as some of the best warriors within that land. And essentially the little town that they live in has been named the Sword of Kagan, and it's basically their mission to protect the world from outside invasions from other lands and countries and things like that. So he's from quite a revered family, and basically he's starting off his story with understanding kind of the pressure that is on him to also be a great warrior, to kind of be able to wield what is called the Whispering Blade, which is what his father and his uncle is able to do. He's kind of training towards being able to do that. But one day a new student from another part of the world comes into his town and kind of pulls the curtain back on some of the things that he may have been told about his town, about his government, about the empire, and kind of makes him see that things may be different than what he had been told, and there may be secrets to uncover along the way. We're also following his mother, Misaki, who has a bit of a mysterious past. She's now a housewife and a devoted mother, but she does have a past which was a bit more tumultuous than she would have you believe. And we know from the start of the story that when she decided to get married, she hid away her sword and decided to just devote herself to being a mother. But along the way, things may arise that mean that she has to kind of go back to those childhood passions that she had in order to protect her family. And so far from what I've read, I've been really loving this. I'm really loving the explorations of motherhood, of regret, of pressure from family expectations, and kind of the dynamics that go along with that. And it's just been such a great start to the book, really kind of action-packed. There's not been a slow moment within this, and I think with M.L. Wong's writing, what I've found so far with a couple of books that I've read, she's really great at her character work, and basically very soon within this story I've loved the characters and I'm really rooting for them and I just want them to be happy. I feel like I know them really well, even though it has been quite a short time with them. And yeah, I just have a feeling that the character arcs within this are going to be exactly the same as I had with Blood Over Brighthaven, where by the end of it I was just completely in love with them and absolutely wanted the best for them, and will be thinking about them for a very long time. But as I say, I'm about 40% into this one, so I'll keep you updated on how things progress within this. But so far, absolutely loving this, loving the prose, loving the writing style, loving the story. I'm really excited to see where this one goes. I'm also reading an arc for Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young, and this is the same author as Out on a Limb, and this is kind of a story set in the same world essentially as that story. So within this one we're following the friends of the main characters in the first book, Sarah and Caleb, and essentially these two have been together since they were very young. They've experienced a lot of things together. They're at a point in their marriage where they're maybe feeling like they're in a bit of a rut, or they need to reconnect, to kind of re-establish their relationship. And Sarah especially is trying to kind of understand who she is outside of this relationship because they were together from such a young age. She kind of wants to know who she is outside of that relationship, and with Out on a Limb I absolutely loved it. I'm not a big romance reader, so I know I don't have a lot to compare it to, but really loved that book. I read it within like a 4-hour sitting or something like that. Love the banter, love the characters, and so far within this one I'm really enjoying it as well. I'm really enjoying just the flow of the story. There's just something about her writing and the way that she writes her characters that I really enjoy. So yeah, it's definitely given me the same feelings that I had with Out on a Limb. Quite a lot of self-reflection in there, and there's a lot that I'm actually really relating to when it comes to what Sarah is bringing up and what she's kind of experiencing, having been with her husband for quite some time. So yeah, there's just something about Hannah Bonham Young's writing that is really relatable to me for some reason, so definitely really enjoying that one, so I'll keep you updated on that as well. And hopefully once I'm finished both of those I will be able to pick up then A Kiss of Iron by Claire Sager. So this one is just one that I've seen a lot of people talking about. I think it was just completed in terms of the trilogy at the end of last year, so the last book has just come out, and that means it's a perfect time to maybe start this trilogy because I can then binge it and finish it. But this one, I don't know too much about what this one's about. I just know it's a romantasy about this woman who has to infiltrate a circle within nobility. I think she ends up messing with leader of the Fae or something like that, and I'm guessing there's going to be some forced proximity. There's going to be some enemies delivered in here at some point. But I just heard a lot of people say that this is really good, really fast paced, a really great romantasy, and I haven't had a lot of romantasies recently that have hit the way I like them to, so so hoping that this is going to be a new favourite and it's going to be a new series that I can binge. But yeah, I'll not be starting this one until I finish Sword of Kagan and Out of the Woods. So once I start it, I'll be able to give you a bit more of a synopsis about what it's about, who we're following, and yeah, I'll give you all my thoughts and feelings on it as well. So yeah, that's the TBR for this week. If I can squeeze anything else in before I have to get this vlog up, then I'll obviously add that in as well. We're about midway through January at the moment, and I think this isn't going up until the end of the month, so I may be able to squeeze one or two more in there, but these are kind of the set TBR for the video, so I'll definitely be giving you my thoughts and feelings on these and be finishing these within the video as well. But yeah, hoping to get a good bit of list read today. It is quite a chunky one, but I'm hoping I'm going to be able to get through it quite quickly because I'm basically just dedicating most of my reading time to this and reading Out of the Woods kind of as my nighttime read, and I'm reading that pretty quickly because it is shorter romance, but most of my reading time will be dedicated to this one. So as soon as I've read a bit more in either of the books, I'll jump on and let you know. So just jumping on to give you my final update for Sword of Kagan. So obviously the last time we spoke I was about 40% into this one and I ended up just really devouring this. I just really enjoyed it. Didn't want to put it down, and I think because of that it would be a really fast paced plot. You know, there would be a lot going on, and I think the first 40% of this was pretty fast paced. We were learning a lot about the world, learning a lot about the political landscape. There was a lot of kind of worries and anticipation as they were on the brink of perhaps an attack or war, but after that it did actually become a lot slower, which is quite strange because usually you have the build up to that, but the way that this was written, it was almost like back to front in terms of the pacing. So it was really fast right up until that 40% mark, and then it really slowed down, and for some people they may not enjoy that, but for me, just the way that ML Wong writes, it definitely is about the characters when we're looking at her stories. I think the story, the landscape, the political intrigue is all there and it is all really interesting, but the things I think I'm going to take from her books, from the two that I've read so far anyway, is definitely the character arcs and just the way that she makes her characters so believable and real and raw, and the stories aren't kind of there to keep you entertained as such. It is just more about kind of almost self-reflection, and a lot of what you see in here, while it's not a situation that I would hope to ever be in, you can kind of see yourself relating to how the characters are reacting, and I think, as I say, it just felt a lot more real. Like, it definitely gave me the same kind of vibes as I had when I was reading The Poppy War, so giving that depiction of war and conflict and kind of governmental deception and how things may not always be as they seem in those situations, it definitely gave me those same vibes. So I think if you read that series and really enjoyed it, you'll probably enjoy this book as well, because even though that book is very heavily about the war, it is much more about the people and the characters and how they kind of developed throughout that time. So yeah, it definitely gave me those same kind of vibes. I mean, this is obviously a standalone, so much shorter to read. I do kind of wish I'd annotated this because I think the writing was absolutely beautiful. There was quite a few quotes in here that I think I probably would have highlighted and like to have kind of made note of, so I may end up rereading this one day just to kind of annotate those and mark those out, because I just think that the way that she kind of delved into some of the themes that I really love to read about, and some of those really raw themes, she done it in such a masterful way, and it was just full of compassion and nuance, and there wasn't a lot of kind of telling us what was happening. A lot of it was showing and making us feel what was happening, so it was quite visceral. There was quite a few scenes where you could just really feel the tension and feel exactly what the characters were feeling as well. So in terms of that side of things, absolutely expertly done. Mizaki, who is the mother within this story, is a really interesting character. It's definitely a story about motherhood, but probably not like you've read it before. So it's not about a doting mother who will go to the ends of the earth to save her children, while that is kind of her personality and she probably would do that. It's not portrayed in the way that you would expect it to be, and I just thought it was really interesting to read, really interesting to kind of look from that perspective and understand that, you know, understanding her relationship with her husband and her children, and it maybe not being the kind of doting mother picture that we're used to seeing within so many of these stories. You know, they can still be fierce women, but generally they are the doting mothers that we're used to seeing within media, and I don't think that was how this was depicted in this book, and it was for several reasons that I won't go into because it is kind of spoilers, but just the way that her attitude towards motherhood was depicted was really interesting to read, and I do think that a lot of it was kind of pointing towards postnatal depression and just being in all of this marriage and children almost being a product that the women were expected to give within this part of the deal, and it was just really interesting the way that it was approached. So really enjoyed that, and I just think overall, again, it was just something that really made me feel. The story really immersed me within these people's lives, and I just really cared about what happened to them. Quite a few heartbreaking moments in here. Definitely check out trigger warnings because there's quite a few scenes in here that I could imagine would be quite triggering for some people, but just that goes up and and just be cautious of that before jumping into this one. But in terms of the writing, in terms of the story, in terms of the characters, this is definitely one that's going to stay with me for quite a long time. I ended up giving it 4.75 only because I think there's a few instances in here where the pacing was a little bit clunky, and there was a few instances where I felt like there was almost an info dump, and it did take me out of the story a tiny bit. But other than that, you know, this was so close to a 5-star that I almost feel mean giving it 4.75. But I'm trying to be more level with my ratings this year and not just giving everything that I love 5 stars. So if I'm being honest, there were a few points in here where I was just a little bit like, okay, let's, you know, move on from this point, and that's why it's a 4.75. But in reality, if I was reading this last year, I probably would have given it 5 star. All in all, highly recommend this one. Still reading Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young, and I'm about 65% into this, so not too long left to read on it. I think it said about 2 hours left in the book, but really loving it. Again, just loving exploring Sarah and Caleb's kind of backstory. We're getting a lot of flashbacks to when they were young, when they met, and kind of how their relationship developed. And if there's one thing Hannah Bonham Young can write, it's a book boyfriend, and Caleb is right up there with some of the book boyfriends that I have. So thoroughly enjoying that. Not too much to say in terms of the story or anything, but just still really enjoying the writing, loving the characters, and even though some of it is probably a little bit cheesy, there's just something about her writing I really love, so definitely still enjoying that one. And then because I finished Sword of Kagan, I did start on A Kiss of Iron, and this seems to be a pretty quick read for me. I did start off with the audiobook as well as reading it physically, but I'm not loving the narrator, to be honest, so I want to try and read this probably physically as much as possible because I'm enjoying it a lot more when I'm reading it physically than with audiobook. So I probably will try and find another audiobook to listen to while I'm reading this one. But I've got about 30% into this, and just to give you a bit more of a synopsis from what I told you before, in this one we're following Kat, who was kind of from a noble family. She was quite high up in ranking in society, and she was married for some time and is still married within the story. However, her husband's a bit useless. She hasn't seen him for, you know, months or a year or something like that, and he's basically lost all of their money, and she's been trying to manage the estate where they're living for quite some time on her own, and really been struggling to do that. In order to try and make money to keep the estate and to keep the house going, she has been working as a highwaywoman and stealing from, you know, the nobility within the town. She doesn't like to steal from anyone, obviously, who doesn't have anything, so very much kind of a Robin Hood-esque story, only the poor that she's giving to is basically herself. One day she is called to the palace to become a lady-in-waiting for the queen, so this kind of embarks her into the circle of the nobility within the royal palace and within the court there. And while she's there, one of the lords actually asks her to basically spy on this High Lord of the Fae called Bastian Marwood, and she's kind of doing this under duress and just trying to find out a way she can find information on him, and she's basically trying to seduce him so that she can get information from him. So obviously that's where the romance is going to come in here. So far I have really enjoyed it. I do think this is a true romantasy. I think it's been really fun so far. I'm really intrigued to see where it goes as well. Really like the writing, really liking the banter between the characters. There has been a little bit of insta lust, which I don't mind. There's no kind of insta love from what I'm seeing, so we'll see how that progresses. But we're in 150 pages in, and I think that's around 30% in this one, and so far there has been some, you know, things going on, but it doesn't feel like it's too fast. It doesn't feel like it's moving too fast in that direction, so it's not kind of jarring me or anything, because I am a person who really hates insta love or people having feelings for each other really quickly. I'm very much a slow burn, or enemies to lovers or something like that. I don't like it to be too quick, but with this it's just feeling really fun. And I said in a few recent videos that romantasy hasn't really been hitting for me, and I do think that this is going to be one that I will enjoy, even though it is very romance heavy. It's going to be very romance led, which usually for me isn't what I would seek in these type of stories, but something about this one, I am really enjoying it, just really enjoying the writing, and it's just been really bingeable and fun. So definitely one that I'm thinking about when I'm not reading it, and that's exactly what I want when I'm reading a romantasy, just something that's going to immerse me within the world, get me really intrigued by the story, and have me thinking about it when I'm not reading it. So far so good. Let's see how this one goes. So I'm probably going to read a bit more of this tonight, and then I'll probably try and pick a audiobook to read as well alongside this, because I do like to listen to audio while I'm getting ready and things like that. But as I say, just not feeling the narration for this one. So I've got a few things on my TBR, not too sure what I'm going to pick up yet, but I may pick up one of the more contemporary stories. So I do have White Love by Elsie Silver on my TBR. That might be a good one to kind of match with this, because it's not going to clash or anything, but there is a few high fantasy on there as well that might be a good time to pick those up while I'm reading something that's a bit more on the romantasy side. So not sure yet, gonna have a look through, see what I'm in the mood for reading, and I'll let you know as soon as I next update you. Hi lovelies, just jumping on to give you an update on my reading. Obligatory pug snorts, but just wanted to update you because I'm now 60% into this one, and since the last time we spoke, let's just say this has got pretty spicy. This is definitely one of those romantasies. It is very much about the romance, very romance forward, but this is a little bit more spicy than I was anticipating with this one, but nothing too crazy. I'm sure if you're someone that reads spice a lot, you'll probably feel that this is pretty minimal, but if you're someone who enjoys that and if you like romantasy that does have a lot of spice in it, I think you'll definitely like this one. There's a lot of tension, a lot of kind of build up with the characters as well, so it's not straight in there. I will say she's doing a really great job of kind of building up that tension just in terms of the romance as well with the two characters, and even though it could have come across as insta love, I definitely don't feel that with this. It's definitely an insta lust, which is absolutely fine. There is a pretty good background story in this one. I think there is a lot of kind of political maneuvering, a lot of almost like game of chess basically, just people trying to maneuver their way to the top and trying to improve their status. Spy masters who are basically trying to manipulate all the pieces to get the best out of the court, and I'm really enjoying that. I think if you like anything that's like a regency where it involves balls and things like that, again you'll like this because that's very much the setting of this one, but I would say that the romance is definitely at the forefront of this, which is absolutely fine because this is romantasy. I'm intrigued to see where this goes because there is a lot of kind of fake kind of relationships, a lot of deception going on in here, and I'm intrigued to see who is the one who's going to betray someone. I have a very big feeling that at the end of this there's going to be kind of a betrayal. We do know of one side of it, but I have a feeling there's going to be something that we don't know that's maybe going to be unveiled at the end of this book, and it's probably going to be a cliffhanger into the next one. But I am enjoying that I'm not able to kind of predict where this one's going to go, unless I can, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe there won't be a twist, but at the moment I don't think I'm predicting where this one's going to go, so really enjoying that. It does feel like it's a bit of a fresh romantasy. I mean, I think this isn't new, obviously the third book has just come out, but for me I have really been struggling with romantasy lately and it just hasn't been hitting for me the way it normally does, and this is definitely starting to solve that, or maybe I'm just out of my little slump with romantasy because I am really enjoying this one, really enjoying the characters, really enjoying the banter, enjoying the relationship building and kind of the angst and tension that they have going on there. So yeah, so far so good. There's still about 40% left, as I say, so not too much. I think I'll be able to read that quite quickly. Still enjoying reading it physically over listening to the audiobook. I have listened to the audiobook today because I was doing a bit of organising with my physical TBR, which you probably will have seen that video by now. So yeah, I did listen to a bit of it on audio, but I definitely prefer reading this one physically. Yeah, so far so good, so I'll probably give you an update on this one once it's done. And obviously I am also still reading Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young, and I'm about 80% of that one. Really loving it. Do you know what it is with Hannah Bonham Young? I definitely just think that I really find her writing in terms of romance refreshing. I don't feel like she's bringing up kind of third act conflicts just for the sake of it or anything. It definitely just feels more real. The relationships feel really real. I can imagine these scenarios. I've been with my husband for quite a long time and I am relating to what Sarah and Caleb may be feeling and kind of how they may have got themselves into a bit of a process and emotion, and it's very hard to get out of that kind of what your roles are within the relationship. Sometimes you do have to sit back and reevaluate and think about, you know, what do you want out of a relationship? Where do you want to be in 10 years time? Do you still align with who you were, you know, 10 years ago? And most of us won't. You know, what we wanted back then when we were together will have changed over the years. Obviously I've been with my husband almost 20 years, so who I was when I met him compared to now is a completely different person, and he is exactly the same. So it's really refreshing to read a story like this where it's kind of an established relationship where it's not quite on the rocks, you know, they're not at a point where they want to get divorced or anything like that, but they're just consciously working on the relationship and working on how they can improve it and make sure that it stays as strong as it has been up to now. And yeah, just really loved it. I really love her writing, and it's just a bit refreshing, I think, to read that type of story over kind of the this is how we met story. But we are getting some flashbacks of their relationship and how they met and how their relationship kind of built, and I've really loved that as well, just because we do know them from Out on a Limb. But yeah, I feel like I've really lucked out. I do feel like in January I always end up having some really good reads, and I think it's because I prioritise books that I've been really anticipating or books that I didn't quite get to the year before, because I remember last January I had some really amazing reads, and I think this year's going to be exactly the same, because so far I don't think I've rated anything under maybe 4-star. There might have been one 3.5, but I can't think of it right now. But yeah, pretty much rating everything 4-star and above so far this year, so here's hoping that continues. It is Saturday today, my husband is at a course today, so I do have a bit of free time now, so I'll probably just read a bit more, catch up on a bit of YouTube, snuggle with this one, and then I'll probably give you my next update and potentially the last update depending on how long this vlog is once I finish both those books. so I was editing the vlog and realised I never actually closed it out or gave you my final thoughts and feelings on A Kiss of Iron and Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young, but I've now finished both of them, and I'll start off with A Kiss of Iron. So this one, I ended up giving this one a 3.5, and that's not because it was bad. For me, I think a 3 to 3.5 is still a really good rating, but I know some people think that means I didn't enjoy it. But for me, the reason I'm giving this a 3.5 is because I've enjoyed it while I'm reading it, and I think it was a fun story, but it's not one that I think will stick in my brain for, you know, years to come, and one that I'm going to be obsessed with. So really fun while I'm reading it, but not that memorable. So 3.5 for me at the minute. I think jumping into this, I was expecting kind of a fun romantic fantasy, and that's exactly what I got here. A lot of it was kind of centering around the relationship, centering around how they get to know each other and kind of some of the secrets that they had from each other. I got exactly what it said I would get, so no complaints there. I really enjoyed the tension between the characters and kind of how their relationship built. It was a little bit insta-lusty, but again, I don't mind that too much. But I would say, obviously, if you're the type of person who doesn't really like a lot of spice within their story, this does have a fair amount in there, and it is very lust forward, so just a heads up if that's something you don't enjoy. I personally do enjoy it within my books, so it wasn't a problem for me. I do wish that there was a bit more world building in this one, but I have since learned that there's a bit of a companion series that kind of is set before this series, but within the same world, and I wonder would I have been better reading that one first, because in this one it didn't seem like there was a lot of world building at all. It's kind of a alternate England essentially that we have in here, so there maybe doesn't need to be that much world building, but just for me it just made it hard for me to kind of envisage where these people were sitting within the world and kind of the greater politics within the country or the world, and why some of the stakes may have been a bit higher for them. There was a bit of info dumping on the Fae realms, but other than that there wasn't really that much world building done. The characters were a little bit frustrating at times, and I do think that sometimes it felt like they were almost out of character for some of their motivations, the way they were doing things. You know, at one point they'd be extremely strong and these powerful people, you know, with experience, and they knew what they were doing, but at the same time they were pretty naive. I think at the end of it you do kind of realise why, but it was just a little bit frustrating throughout it and made it hard for me to kind of invest myself in their relationship. And I think we would have benefited from Bastian's POV even 1 or 2 chapters throughout. Again, at the end you do maybe realise why you don't get that, but just 1 or 2 throughout there would have maybe made this a bit more intriguing. But overall, as I say, a fun read. Definitely going to read the second book, but for me these are probably books that I'll enjoy in the moment, but just not ones that are going to kind of be god tier for me or anything like that. So far, I mean, this is the first book, I haven't read the second or the third book, so that could change when I get into those stories, because a lot of people have said that they love the second book. So let's see. I will be reading the second book, so I obviously enjoyed it enough to move on in the series. So I definitely highly recommend this for anyone who likes romantasy or is maybe new to romantasy as well. I think this would be a perfect book to pick up. And then Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young. I love this one. I ended up giving it 5 stars. I don't know what Hannah Bonham Young puts in her books, but whatever it is, I'm absolutely loving it. After reading Out on a Limb by her, I was really excited to pick this one up, and it definitely didn't disappoint. I just loved the further exploration of Sarah and Caleb's relationship, kind of, especially because there was no real tension there was no real conflict. They were just kind of working out how their relationship would go and how it would look going forward, really working on keeping it as strong as it had been and not just filming over the cracks, as a lot of people do tend to do. So it was really nice to kind of see that representation within a book. There was a few scenes at the end that actually made me cry physically, and if you know me, that takes a lot. I don't cry a lot of books, so if you get that type of reaction from me, it's, you know, it has to be 5 stars. I just feel like the characters just felt really real, really well fleshed out, and I just loved every moment of this book. So yeah, if you like contemporary romance and you haven't read from Hannah Bonham Young before, definitely read Out on a Limb and then read this book as well. It should be out now. It's out at the end of this month, so by the time this vlog goes up, it may be out next week. Depending on when I post this, it's either out or coming out soon. But yeah, highly recommend that if you do like contemporary romance. But yeah, that's everything for this vlog, so I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed kind of following me along with my reads. I feel like I had a really good reading week overall. Obviously, Sword of Kagan was 4.5, and I had Kiss of Iron 3.5, and then lastly Out in the Woods, which was a 5 star as well. So pretty good reading week all round. Let me know if you've read any of these, what your thoughts and feelings were of them, and definitely if you've read the Kiss of Iron series, definitely let me know what you thought of the series overall, because I am excited still to jump into the next book on that one. If you like this video, do remember to give it a like, and if you want to see more from me, remember to subscribe. I post 2 videos per week, and it's videos like this, so reading vlogs, TBR videos, book recommendation videos, come shopping with me, book hauls, all good bookish things like that. Other than that, thanks so much for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one soon. Bye!